All right, so today I'm going to do a little code review, kind of for my own purposes because this needs a code review. And I feel like I'm going to do it better if I make a video of it. All right, and we have a nested function in main. We'll talk about that later. Actually, I'm going to make a video on that topic of nested functions in C. It's not standard C, but the GCC compiler allows it. I think, let's see here. If I look at the script I'm using, I have this W extra. I think that's what's doing it. Oops, what's going on? Let's try getting rid of this for a second and get ready to see something weird. And I'm also going to just change it to full screen. See if it'll compile. It does compile, so anyway, yeah, today is going to be about tile mapping, and there's some tiles going on. Specifically, so I've got like kind of tile mapping working that I'm happy with, and next I'm going to work on sort of terrain mapping, which means that it will choose the tile based on what terrain it's next to. So yeah, I'll explain that better later. Some of you watching will already know what I mean by that. So let's see here. Let's go back here and I guess we don't need it. What was it? I already forgot. Extra? Was it like that? Yeah, anyway, maybe should have that off. And then there's also a flag. Look it up because I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it's pedantic, and then there's pedantic error or something like that. Pedantic errors, which will mean, I think, yeah, it forbids probably a few things I'm doing. So I should actually do this, clean up my code, get rid of some of the warnings and stuff that I haven't really cared about up until now. Nested functions, that's going to be another video, but you know, the biggest thing that people said is that if you care about, because I asked about this on Quora, trying to get the opinion of more experienced developers, and the biggest thing they said was that if you care about portability, then you shouldn't use the nested functions. But you know what? Am I really going to be developing on a platform that can't handle GCC? I don't think so. I like nested functions, so I'm going to leave it for now. But yeah, like I said, that's another topic for another video. I'm guessing I got, a lot more warnings with the pedantic flag. That's cool. So one of these days I should sit down and get rid of my warnings or look at them and all that. But for now, I don't care. All right, so the terrain stuff. Let me just check out the status here. I guess I changed one thing. I think I just changed full screen. That's it. Good. And so I kind of wanted to explain a bit about the the tile map. So I guess I'll load up GIMP here and kind of show you what I'm talking about here with this. And we can take a look at some of these tile maps here. So world tile set. And I'm going to bring up the grid. Let's see, it's show grid. And we want to configure it. Student. You know what? I think was it 32 by 32? What if I do 32? Yeah. So each tile is 32 by 32 pixels. So here's the tile map. And so the idea is like, you know, it'd be nice in GIMP. I don't think there's a way to do this conveniently, but like, imagine if one of these tiles was your paintbrush and you can put a bunch of tiles in a grid. There's software designed specifically for this. They're usually called tile map editors. And so we've got two tile map sets here. One, I'll call this jungle. And over here is soil. And so the reason that it's designed this way is that you're going to have two different types of terrain. And when they meet, you need certain things like this right here is for if it's jungle here, and to the right is soil. Now, doing the art for this is not trivial. It's not the most complicated thing ever either. But that would have to be a different video. There's videos out there on how to make tile maps, and use kind of some symmetry stuff sometimes to make it. So, for example, if I tile all this middle soil tile, it will look good next to each other. I'll just kind of demonstrate what that looks like a bit. So if I move this around, then like here, do you see how it mixes together? Right? Oops. So you can see that if I put it above, you know, it matches it. So it's sort of they're seamless tiles. That's the terminology I'm looking for. So that you don't see this seam here, and all of them are designed that way. So yeah, I'm not going to go into detail about the design of the tiles, but I was having some trouble. I was doing different ways of doing it, and now I think I've got a good system where I've got, so these 9 tiles, which represent, you know, if there's the soil tiles in different places, and then needed these ones here, these 3, and these 3, and then this one where it's surrounded on all sides, and then vice versa, the opposite for all of these. I could put a little more soil in the middle on that one if I wanted to, but yeah, so these are the tile sets. So it exports just as a simple PNG basically. And so kind of the magic is that I've got this tilemap.h, and I'm mapping out the tiles. Like these 9s are the middle jungle tile, 8 is the left edge, 10 is the right edge. You know, look at there's 0, 1, 2. We'll just see, you know, what that looks like. In the image that you just viewed, this was 0, 1, and then these are all 1s, and then 2. You can see these are corners, right? So it's got these corners, got this jungle, etc. Reina? ちょっと録画してるよ. It's okay. Anyway, yeah, so we've got this tile map going on. What else? Yeah, so it's made like this so that I could not only type it out the way it is here, like this, but, and by the way, it's also designed, I'm not showing it here, but I had it more zoomed in before, and you could, just to verify that, like, the tile maps can be bigger than the screen. You know, that right now that might seem basic, but anyway. So the tile maps can go way beyond the screen, and zooming basically works, but the character got messed up when I did the zoom. Like, he looks all wrong. But anyway, that's fixable. And I don't think I'm going to even use the character in this game, so whatever. But yeah, so we've got some zooming capability. We've got that the tile map can go off in all directions forever, basically. And so the additional cool thing is that I could, say, generate this stuff, these numbers automatically, say, for example, using Perlin noise. I think I got that name right. Well, there's all kinds of different like noise generators that you could sort of imagine it as a sort of a spectrum, like a continuous distribution, and then you sort of force it into integers, kind of mapping it into integers, and then so yeah, various ways to generate noise. Perlin, for example, you can make 2D noise and looks sort of, think of it as like looking like clouds a bit. I don't know if it really does look like clouds, but just as so you have an image in your head. So yeah, we could generate a world. But what I have in mind is to have, for example, just a bunch of 1s and 0s. So 0 could be, let's say 0 is jungle and 1 is soil. Picking picking it arbitrarily. And then, so you just had a bunch of ones and zeros, and then eventually I could have other terrains in there as well that would be different numbers. But this represents now not a part of the tile map, but a terrain, right? And then the idea is that the program would look at the terrain and pick the correct tile map from the corresponding tile. So like it would say, oh, this is jungle. So it's going to be one of the jungle tiles. And then based on what is neighboring it, above and below, I don't think the diagonal tiles would matter, but it would look above, below, left, and right. And based on that, it would choose a tile that makes sense. So if it looked above, below, to the left and right, and then found that it is jungle on all sides, and that this one itself is jungle, it would pick 9, the middle tile, for example. If it saw some soil on the right, and the rest were jungle, then it would pick 10. That's the one where soil is on the right, and so on. Do you get it? So the idea is to kind of, the next thing I'm trying to work on is sort of to progress from basically a tile map to a terrain map where it kind of automatically detects everything. But I don't have anything about terrain set up yet. All I've got is tile mapping. It's the next step, but I'm doing this video in part as a code review before I do the next step. And let's see here. So, trying to think. Yeah, I wanted to test out here if I say like 19, what happens? 19, huh. Oh, you know what? Whoa. Oh, right. This is getting generated. So there's a tile map generator, which isn't really doing anything except sort of, it's just doing a pass through of data basically. So in assets, we have this tile map 1, tile map 01, and it's just passing through the data. So, but the reason that I sort of set up the beginnings of a kind of generator is that, you know, for one thing, it might be useful in the terrain generation, but additionally, it might be useful for, like I was saying, like Perlin noise and automatic terrain generation, kind of world building stuff, I guess. So let's see what happens when I change that to 19. Yes, we get, actually this is just the, oh, okay. It's not going as far as I wanted. Let's see, it's, that tile map for just for jungle was what? It's 4x4. I don't know. Let's try 24 here. See what happens. Get a different one. Let's try 33. I'm trying to get to the soil tiles. That doesn't work. 24. This looks like the bottom leftmost one from the stuff I just showed you. Unless things are oriented differently, but looking at the numbers, I don't think they are. So let's try 27. Should be 3 over. Yeah, so this is, it looks like the last one of the jungle tiles. So if I go 28, I'm guessing it's just not going to work. 28 works. And this is soil now. Interesting. So that's one soil tile. 29. All right, so let's try just like, hold on. 27, 28, 29, 30. Let's see how that goes. Right, so it used some of the soil and went back to the jungle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th tile. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th. I don't know, it went back. So this is confusing behavior for me. And I'll undo all these changes all the way back to the beginning, actually. Save, should be back to normal. So I'm gonna go through kind of nuts and bolts of how this is working. Let me just make sure I'm recording still, yeah. And yeah, so let's look at the main. And we've got tile map generator. So it's got this enum. You know what? I think, yeah, it's because this enum thing is not doing anything else. So the tile map generator is getting called by run linux.sh. It's just running it. And then it's passing from some information from this program I showed you before, or sorry, data I showed you before to tilemap.h. So it's generating this tilemap.h. That is the only thing that where stuff gets echoed to or catted to. Tilemap header file, which in this case is tilemap.h, which is this one. So this is what gets generated. So we have this enum that I made, sort of arbitrary stuff, and I think this is polluting the global global variable space. And let's see. So I'm not gonna want it to be like this. But anyway, I'm going to need. Oh, but I'm not really using any of these, am I? I'm using the actual numbers. And if I do, for example, if I cut this out, it's not going to change anything, is it? Unless I'm using one of those enums in the program itself, but no, it's fine. I'm still going to leave that there for now. All right, so I guess we just need to look through main. I've talked about a lot of this in my last video, so stuff that's not related to tile mapping, probably gonna just leave out here. Yeah, nothing related to tile mapping yet. So Windows stuff, input outputs, bunch of shaders, lots of shaders I'm not using, and blah blah blah. Here's this nested function I talked a little bit about. Not even really being used now, actually. Anyway. Okay, I went through some different ways of doing this stuff, and I called it tiles, terrain tile array, it's called. So I'll just copy this down here. And so I was trying to use like vec2s here before, which is actually what I'm doing still. So I showed you before for the jungle terrain grid, so it goes up to 32. So that's why when I put in like numbers over 32, actually it might be numbers over 31, it gets weird. And so how is this being mapped out? We've got 0, so it's sort of how you would think. X's and Y's, it's just like a coordinate plane like you did in high school or middle school. And yeah, X's and Y's. But it's coming up from here, which might seem a little strange. Yeah, so that's, okay, so that's a terrain tile array. So the idea is that that only has jungle. And I guess I'm gonna need, there's so many different ways to do all of this, and how you save your image files is also gonna factor in. So it's a little bit complicated. I guess for terrains, I could make it where each new terrain just goes to the right. So like if I were going to add a new terrain, I'd make this 64. I would add in, you know, the logical stuff that you would add in. Hope that makes sense. And then I would have another terrain added. That's one way of doing it that I can think of off the top of my head. And then so if I, like I showed you this, if I added a third terrain, it would just go to the right. That would be one way of doing things. I think that sounds fine to me. Stuff that's kind of not being, well, you know, there's like collision detection and even there's jumping stuff. Yeah, because you can see the player jump. Then the clouds moving in the background. And then here's where tiles are getting made, basically. So world size. So let's take a look at this. We've got these kind of three sets of variables. Well, yeah. World width, world tile width, height, and then the world size, which is when you multiply them together. Screen tile width, height, and the screen size, which again multiplying together. Then terrain, and I suspect this is not really being used. It says one match, so it's not being used. Two matches, it's being used over here as well, and then we're going to see the same for this. So terrain stuff not being used yet, but it is there. Whereas the screen stuff is definitely being used. And it says one match, but it's being used here. This is 3 matches,
はい、
and
どう
this is
も
3 matches.
ダブルヘッダーかなさっきロックマンやってたんですけど、
Somebody
はい、
started streaming.
違うゲームを、はい、今日から新シリーズということでやっていきたいと思います。
My goodness.
はい、ちゃんと映ってるかな大丈夫かな
You know what?
はい、じゃあ今回やるゲーム
Here
は
it
ですね、ゼルダの伝説
That's cool. All right, a little interruption. Where were we? So da 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 da. Right, these things. So if I change this, so let's pay attention. It's 16 by 8 right now. Okay, and this is gonna get bigger now if I go to 8 by 4. Bigger, but you see that it neatly sort of makes sense, I guess. Neatly fits into the screen. Cool, so we got those variables, and so for the world size, yeah, so it's rendering stuff not based on the screen, but going beyond that, it's rendering all the tiles, which is something we'll want to change later. And but for now, it's the way I have it. And so there's various ways of calculating, but I find it easier to do, like calculate X position, Y position. This is based on tiles. And yes, I'm not going to quite explain it, but it's just basically that the idea is that you know, probably this is 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, so on. This is I made that backwards. 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, and then this is 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. This is 1, 1. But it might be the other way. It might start with 0, 0 down here. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Anyway, this gets this y pos plus 1. I think it's, yeah, it's getting flipped upside down, you know, here, so. All right, so TTA of tile map I, this is where it gets a little tricky. This is what I want to talk about. But let's make sure there's nothing else after this. This is basically it. Got some shaders and that's it. Yeah, this is it. So let's look for tile map I. I believe that this is in tilemap.h. Yeah, here's tilemap. So try to remember, this is tilemap. This is where I input what the tiles look like. And then TTA. Probably poorly named TTA. So what is going on here? It's still in my head. It's not clicking quite yet. Terrain tile array. So this is the full jungle thing, right? The jungle thing. No, wait, it should be more. There's more in there. Because just jungle would be 4x4, but it's doing 8x4, it looks like. So 8x4, 4x4 would be 16. 8x4 would be twice that. So 8x4 is 32. Okay. So that sounds like I should have access to the full thing. Let us try this. I'm just going to do this manually. Oops. Make basically 32 of these. That's anyway, it's going to go to 32, which means probably to about here, I guess. And people who use Vim or some crazy macros, I get it. They're like, oh my god, I can't believe he's doing it like this. Whatever, got the job done. So there are 32 things there. Let's see. Oh, but you know what? I put this in. This is about to be erased because this gets auto-generated. So it doesn't matter what I put in here. I can just go boom and save it. And I can go here, though. Save that one. Now what happens? So it gets all screwy looking, doesn't it? But are all the tail... I think maybe all the tiles are there. It looks like this... Once it gets to here, it's all getting repeated over and over again. So, yeah, there's something wrong here. I've got to basically figure out this conundrum of exactly how everything is getting worked. I think I can comment this. Thing is, it doesn't know what it is, so we'll just say C, and then should be able to comment it. Yeah, this should be fine as well. I mean, the same thing. It comes in commented. It's not a problem. All right. So basically, I need to sit down and really work through my brain how this is happening, precisely, and experiment a bit, and then once I've figured out exactly precisely how it's working, then I can make a terrain. Work on the next feature, which is I gotta make sure that I can access all the soil terrain, not just the jungle terrain. And then you'll have, I'm just gonna write pseudocode or something. You're gonna have I basically showed you how I need the terrain data to look like something like this, in a grid. And then, what was I gonna say? I'm gonna have something that's maybe gonna count the commas so that it figures out automatically how the grid works. And that might be it actually. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, that's right. So I changed it. It was originally 4x8, and then I added 1 to each dimension to make sure that I could easily change the dimension here. And this is a whole different dimensionality, right? So that's why it's getting all funky. But if I change the dimensionality here, I think it's this. No. Terrain. It's world tile width and length. That's what it is. This is 9 by 5, and this is 9 by 5. So later this has to be sort of automatically. So actually, I keep doing that. I keep doing the wrong file. So this is 9x5. This needs to be automatically figured out. And I guess by counting the commas would be a good way. But then at the end here, it's going to be like sometimes you'll have a comma and sometimes not. That's a little tricky. One way is I could not automatically calculate it and just always hard code it. So if I change this to like 8x4, it's going to get funky looking. I messed something up. 377. Oh, you know what? I was adding all this silly pseudocode or something, and then I just, yeah. Anyway, it's working. All right. So there's the dimensionality of it. I'm not sure if I'm going to automatically detect it or leave it hard-coded. I think in the beginning, it's easier. Well, I don't think I know. It's easier to leave it hard-coded like this. And so this will get all messed up if I say 8x4. Yeah, it's all funky now. And, but it's 8x4. All right, anyway, I'm going to experiment with it, and then I'm going to work on making the jungle, or sorry, the terrain, not just tile editing like I was talking about. And so this is 8x4, that's fine. How does it know? Anyway, I just need to stare at it for 30 minutes and then I'll figure out exactly what to do. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the kind of pseudocode. It's just going to, like if you've ever made Conway's Game of Life, it's going to be a similar thing. You just, for each tile, look at the neighboring tiles. So, and then have some rules for how it gets set up. So that's not that big of a deal, actually. It's not that hard. I feel like the trickiest part is already done. But I just feel like I'm not doing it elegantly here. It needs to be done in a way that is easier to quickly understand, I think. Anyway, it's a bit all over the place, but I just wanted to share because I know there's people interested in game development, and this kind of thing of tile mapping and having like a terrain editor is super useful for 2D games, I think, depending obviously on the type of game that you're going to make. And anyway, just kind of chronicling what I'm doing with this whole project. And you know, I'm doing this project not only for its own sake, but kind of doing my OpenGL tutorial series. It's good to have to work on some game development stuff kind of way ahead of the series. And I might transition it into kind of game development tutorials and stuff like that. There's a software for free and open source software out there for this sort of tile mapping and terrain editing stuff. I forget what it's called, but you can find it. But you know, Unity also has this stuff. Unity 3D. They have you have to like download some extra Git repo for it, and they have their own tile mapping system that seems like it might be nice. I might play around with it a bit, but of course I want to roll my own system anyway. So yeah, just sharing some random content, and I don't think many people are going to watch this right now, but you know, in the future I'll have like much better stuff set up, and I think some people might be curious about how things used to look when I was getting started with this stuff and kind of just building it up in the beginning. So I thought I might, yeah, it's basically a vlog of sorts. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, and see you next time. leave a comment. Let me know if you have any ideas of cool features that I could work on. All right, thanks.